Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and I'm going to be doing a Zing deck profile. So I'm really excited this for you guys because this deck is actually suggested to me by one of my patrons, Garland. And this deck is an absolutely insane deck that I've included all sorts of amazing tech cards in that takes this deck to a whole new level. It's super fun to be able to play and I'm super excited to show you guys my build. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name scripted in a single video, getting us signed cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron. And definitely give Garland some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such an awesome deck. So let's get straight on into this one, guys. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Fire of the Yang Zing, which is a really good 3 of in the deck. Now, all of your Yang Zing monsters in the main deck share a similar effect, that when this card you control is destroyed by battle by card effect and sent to your graveyard, you can special summon another Yang Zing monster from your deck in a particular position, depending on the Yang Zing monster that gets destroyed. For example, this one special summons a Yang Zing monster from your deck in defense position. Some of them special summon in attack position, and some of them special summon in defense position. Doesn't come out that much that it matters because you're just going to use those monsters as synchro material. Now this card also has a similar effect to all of your other non-tuner Yang Zing monsters, that once during your opponent's turn, during their main or battle phase, you can immediately quick effect synchro summon into a synchro monster only using Yang Zing monsters, which is a really awesome effect that all of your non-tuner monster Yang Zings share with that particular effect, which is a really good effect to help you go in for some really powerful synchro monsters during your opponent's turn. Now, all of your Yang Zing monsters, when you use them as material, give your monsters additional buffs, which is really cool because your Fire Yang Zing actually gives the synchro monster you use this card as a material to synchro summon 500 additional attack and defense position points, which is really awesome for this deck to be able to do, to give your synchro monsters additional buffs in this particular deck. I then play 3 copies of the Earth Yang Zing. Now this card is a similar effect, but it makes the monster not be able to be destroyed by battle that uses this card as a synchro material, which is a really good effect to be able to use on this card to be able to have a monster that cannot be destroyed by battle. I then play 2 copies of the Water Yang Zing. Water Yang Zing has the ability that makes the monster immune to trap effects, which is a really powerful effect to make it immune to cards like Torrential Tribute, which makes it so it can't be destroyed and it's unaffected by trap effects. I then play 2 copies of the Wind Yang Zing, which makes them immune to spell effects like Raigeki and Lightning Storm, which is a really powerful thing to be able to make them just completely immune to spell effects. And then play a single copy of the Shadow of the Yang Zing. This card is really neat because of cards like Change of Heart and Mind Control, because it makes the monster that uses this card as a material to synchro summon not be able to switch control, which is a really interesting thing for this card that comes up a lot more now than it used to. I then play 2 copies of the Darkness of the Yang Zing. Now this is our first tuner of the deck that has a really awesome effect that is super unique for this card, that it has the ability, if this card is the only card that you control, the only monster that you control, you can send 2 Yang Zing cards from your hand to the graveyard and then special summon a Yang Zing monster with 0 attack and a Yang Zing monster with 0 defense from your deck, but banish them during the end phase, which is a really good effect because you can summon out cards like your Water Yang Zing and your Fire Yang Zing along with your copy of your Darkness Yang Zing to be able to go in for a copy of, say, Beals, which is a level 8 synchro monster, because this card is actually a dark tuner monster, which is really cool because 2 plus 2 is 4 plus 4 more is 8, so you get into a copy of Beals that is immune to trap effects and gains 500 attack and defense points, which is a really good effect. You can go into a bunch of different plays with this card, but it's a really good 2 of in the deck. And then play a single copy of Chi-Win. Chi-Win is a good 1 of in the deck because it's a good level 1 tuner that can actually special summon itself back to your side of the field from your graveyard, which is a really great effect. I then play, from my personal tech of this deck, I'm playing 3 copies of Vissa Starfrost. This card is the main tuner of the deck. We actually play a total of 7 copies of this card because we also play a field spell that can get to this card super fast along with a terraforming. Now this card is absolutely insane, and the reason this deck is so good because this card has the ability, if this card is in your hand, you can target a monster you control with a different type and attribute than this card and destroy that monster, and if you do, special summon this card from your hand. Now that comes in extremely handy in this deck because all of your Yang Zing monsters monsters float into additional Yang Zing monsters. So for example, if you open up any Yang Zing monster except for the light Yang Zing monster, you can pop them on your side of the field by just normal summoning them, which you guys will see during the test hand. You can normal summon any of your Yang Zing monsters except for the light one, pop them with Vista Starfrost, special summon the Vista Starfrost, and then special summon any Yang Zing monster you want from your deck to your side of the field to help you go in for a synchro play, which is really awesome because it gives you access to pretty much every single synchro monster in the extra deck, which is absolutely insane. I then play some Sword Soul cards in this deck, which I'm playing a single copy of Long Yun because this card can help you go in for level 10 synchro plays by just discarding a worm or a synchro or a Sword Soul monster from my hand to the graveyard. Now, when you use this card as a synchro material, it also has the ability to do 1200 points of damage to your opponent, and every single one of your Sword Soul monsters has the ability to generate a token that is a tuner on your side of the field that is a water tuner worm, level 4, 0 attack, and 0 defense on your side of the field to help you go in for a synchro play. I then play a single copy of Mo Yi. Mo Yi has the ability that if this card is normal or special summon, you can reveal a Sword Soul or a worm monster in your hand, and then special summon out a Sword Soul token to your side of the field, and if this card is sent to the graveyard as a synchro material, you get to draw a card. I then play a single copy of Taiye. Taiye has the ability that if you can banish a Sword Soul or a worm monster from your graveyard and then special summon out a Sword Soul token to your side of the field, and if this card is sent to the graveyard as a synchro material, then you can send a Sword Soul card or a worm monster from your deck to the graveyard, which I usually send the copy of Chi-Wen to the graveyard so I can go in for additional plays later on. These three Sword Soul cards come in really handy in that because you can search them off of your Sword Soul Emergence, which can also, if you control a synchro monster, search out any of your Yang Zing monsters, which is why we play these three in the deck. I play each one of them at one in the deck because in certain situations you want to see each one of them, which is why they're one-ofs in the deck each. I then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom just to stop the opponent from touching the deck, which is a really awesome thing for this deck to have. And then 2 copies of Ghost Ogre. Ghost Ogre just pops cards on the field, which is a really good effect. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Terraforming. Terraforming is a great one of the deck to be able to search our field spells so we can search out our copy of Vista Starfrost as quickly as possible. And then play a single copy of Sword Soul Sacred Summit. This card actually comes in extremely handy because it lets us target a Sword Soul monster in our graveyard, or we control a synchro monster, you can target a worm monster in your graveyard instead, which means you can summon out any of your Yang Zing monsters back to your side of the field. I then play 2 copies of Pot of Desire. Since all of our Yang Zing monsters float and we play so many ways to get to Vista Starfrost, you can activate this card as the last card in your hand after you summon out all your cards to dig for additional copies of hand traps or searchers in the deck to go in for more synchro plays or follow-up plays during the next turn. I then play 3 copies of Primitive Planet. Primitive Planet is actually a Scareclaw card, but it comes in extremely handy for the first effect, that when this card is activated, you can add a Vista Starfrost from your deck to your hand, which is the only effect that we ever use on this card. This card is extremely important in the deck, and you want to get to it as quickly as possible so you can get your Vista Starfrost from your deck to your hand so you can then pop a Yang Zing, special summon it to your field, and then special summon an additional Yang Zing from your deck to your side of the field. I then play 3 copies of Sword Soul Emergence. This is actually the searcher of the deck, not only for the Sword Soul cards, but actually the Yang Zing monsters as well, because it has the ability to add a Sword Soul monster from your deck to your hand, and if you control a synchro monster, you can add a worm monster instead, which can be a really powerful play to search one of your Yang Zing monsters that you might need to then normal summon and then pop with Vista Starfrost to get another synchro monster on the field. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Sword Soul Blackout. I actually consider playing this card as a 3-of in the deck because it has the ability to target a worm monster that you control and 2 cards your opponent controls and destroy them. Now this card is extremely good in the deck because it pops one of your Yang Zing monsters and then pops 2 cards your opponent's side of the field, which basically is an Icarus attack, but then your Yang Zing monsters will go off and special summon an additional one from the deck, which can get you the exact one you need, which is a super powerful effect. I then play play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, bringing the total hand trap count up to 8 in the deck, which is really good for this particular build to play the 3 copies of Ash, the 2 copies of Ghost Ogre, and then the 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, which is just really good in the deck to be able to use those cards. So that's it for the traps, guys, and the main deck. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Baxia. You could bump this card down to 2, but I really like 3 in the deck. This card is basically a compulse, which is really good, but it can actually bounce multiple monsters, which is insane. That when this card is Synchro Summon, you can target cards on the field up to the number of different original attributes of worm type monsters used for this card's Synchro Summon and shuffle them into the deck, which is a really awesome effect to just be able to get rid of a bunch of cards on your opponent's side of the field when you use multiple attributes to summon this card. This card also has the ability that once per turn, you can target 1 card that you control and a level 4 or lower monster in your graveyard and destroy that card on the field, and if you do, you get to special summon the other monster from your graveyard back to the field, which can help you go in for all sorts of different synchro plays because you can pop a Yang Zing on the field, bring back a level 4 from the grave, and then special summon a Yang Zing from the deck because you popped one on the field. I then play a single copy of Yazi. Yazi comes up every so often in the deck. It's a really good one-of in here because it basically works like a scrap dragon that you can target a Yang Zing monster you control and 1 card your opponent controls and destroy them, which is a pretty good effect. And when this card you control is destroyed by battle by card effect, then you can special summon a worm type monster from your deck and defense solution, which is a pretty good effect. And then play a single copy of Chaofeng. Chaofeng is really good because it can lock down attributes if you use worm monsters to summon it, depending on the attribute that you actually use to summon this card, which is a really good effect. Then play a single copy of the Supreme Sovereign, which works really well with our copy of Sword Soul Blackout because it has the ability, if this card is going to be destroyed, you can banish a card from your graveyard instead, and if a card becomes banished, then you can banish 1 card from both your opponent's field and graveyard and it doesn't target, which is absolutely insane because with Blackout, you can target this card, banish a card from the grave, pop 2 cards on the field, banish a card from the field, and banish a card from your opponent's graveyard, which gets rid of a total of 4 cards by just using a copy of Blackout, which is really good. This card also gains 100 attack points for every single banished card, which can boost this card up by 1,000 attack points by just using a copy of Pot of Desires, and it also drops your opponent's monsters down by 100 attack points for every single banished card, which is really insane. I then play a single copy of the Sinister Sovereign. Sinister Sovereign is when your opponent activates a spell or trap card, you can banish that card and inflict 1,200 points of damage to your opponent. And if your opponent also has the ability, if this card or if another synchro monster other than a worm monster, or if you synchro summon another worm monster while this monster is on the field, you can draw a card. And if your opponent special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can banish one of those monsters, and if you do, inflict 1,200 points of damage to your opponent, which is a pretty good effect to be able to just basically banish non-targeting a monster your opponent summons. Then play 2 copies of the Grandmaster, which is basically like a walking effect veiler in the deck, while also letting you, when it's synchro summon, add a Sword Soul card from your deck to your hand, which is a extremely powerful effect. For the other synchro monsters we're playing a single copy of Psychic End Punisher, which is super easy to summon with a copy of Vista Starfrost plus your copy of your level 5 Yang Zing, which is the shadow of the Yang Zing. This card is super good in the deck because when your life points are less than or equal to your opponent's, this synchro summon card is unaffected by any effect that your opponent activates. And then once per turn, you can pay 1,000 life points, target a monster your opponent controls, and 1 card that you control and a card your opponent controls, and then banish those cards. And at the start of the battle phase, you can make this card's attack gain attack equal to the difference between yours and your opponent's life points permanently, which is absolutely insane. 1 copy of Baron de Fleur. Baron de Fleur is really good in the deck because it's an additional negate, and it can also pop your Yang Zings on your side of the field to special summon an additional 1 from the deck. I then play a single copy of Beals. Beals is really good in the deck because it's super easy to summon with your Darkness of the Yang Zing, and it can't be destroyed by battle already, and then you make it immune to trap effects, and it gains 500 attack and defense. This card can get absolutely insane in the deck. Then play a single copy of Dragag because it can negate spells and traps, which is really good to be able to negate spells and traps in this deck with this card if you have a water monster in your graveyard. And then play a single copy of Draco Berserker because it's super easy to summon to your field, and it's just a really good card that when your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can banish that card, and if this card destroys an effect monster of battle and sends it to the grave, this card gains attack equal to that monster's original attack, and also can make a second attack on a monster during that battle phase, which is a pretty good effect. Then play a sealed copy of Cyber's Quantum Dragon. Quantum Dragon is just a really good level 7 monster that you can summon in this deck. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a super fun deck to be able to play with. If you guys have never played with Yang Zing, you definitely should, especially with Vista Starfrost running around, because that card is super good in this deck to be able to help you get out all of your Yang Zings and be able to float into additional monsters while giving you access to your entire extra deck to summon out some really powerful cards. So that's it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.